Blake Lively isn't just fighting a lawsuit. She's fighting a war, and the battlefield isn't the courtroom. It's everyone she believes is against her. According to the latest filings, Blake and her legal team have now targeted 107 content creators, PR workers, and even small women-run businesses, all under one sweeping conspiracy claim that a massive coordinated smear campaign was secretly orchestrated to destroy her during the It Ends With Us press tour. But when you look at the evidence, that campaign doesn't exist. What does exist is public backlash. Backlash that came from her own interviews, her own comments, and her own PR missteps. One of Blake's biggest targets is the Agency Group, a boutique PR firm made up of women in their 20s and 30s. They're not backed by corporations. They don't have bot armies, and they certainly aren't running political-level influence operations. Yet Blake is demanding access to attorney-client conversations that took place before any lawsuit even existed, something unprecedented in a civil case like this. Former employee Brianna Costello recently described what happened inside the company when Blake's accusations hit. Women with newborn babies getting death threats. A 2-year-old crying while a process server pounded on the door. Reputations destroyed overnight. Not because of wrongdoing, but because Blake believed a narrative that no one can prove. Meanwhile, Reynolds stays silent. But the uncomfortable coincidence is this. His marketing companies and agencies have been accused before of bot-boosting engagement and manipulating social sentiment. So if Blake's first instinct was to accuse others of the exact tactics her own camp has been linked to, is this projection? Because now the pattern is becoming hard to ignore. No proof of a bot network. No proof of a coordinated smear. No digital fingerprints of an organized attack. Just Blake's belief, repeated so often she's trying to turn it into evidence. And that's where Stephanie Jones enters the picture. She allegedly helped reinforce Blake's suspicion that the Agency Group was secretly orchestrating online hostility. But industry insiders say the accusation wasn't just inaccurate, it was logistically impossible. The firm doesn't even have the infrastructure to run mass bot networks. Still, Blake didn't need proof. She just needed validation for her assumption. That confirmation bias became the launch pad for one of the most aggressive celebrity legal offensives Hollywood has seen in years, one where tiny PR teams and individual TikTok creators are being treated like hostile foreign agents. And as this escalated, Wayfarer Studios brought in strategist Jed Wallace to control the narrative. Not because Blake was being attacked, but because she was losing control of her own public image. By August 2024, the internet had already turned. TikTok was flooded with breakdowns of her interviews. Colleen Hoover fans were outraged, and Blake herself was going viral for all the wrong reasons. No one needed to coordinate it. The public did that organically. Yet Wallace's strategy deck sounded like a political psyops campaign. Monitor social platforms in real time. Push counter-narratives into trending conversations. Suppress negative search results. And most telling, CTR manipulation. Artificially inflating clicks to force certain content to look more popular than it actually is. Then he raised his fee to $30,000 per month, claiming the risk of Taylor Swift's fan base being activated required a bigger budget, turning Blake's paranoia into billable strategy. The irony is brutal. The only confirmed manipulation campaigns so far are coming from her own side. And this is where the narrative flips completely. Because once Jed Wallace framed this as a threat environment, Blake's team didn't just defend her reputation, they went on offense. They began subpoenaing women who weren't even involved, creators who never spoke to Wallace, and small businesses that never once commented on Blake publicly. Their logic? If you didn't praise her, you must be part of the conspiracy. That's not defamation law, that's intimidation. Court records show that instead of trying to prove a smear campaign existed, Blake's legal strategy shifted toward forcing people to prove they didn't participate in one. That's the legal equivalent of demanding someone prove they never committed a crime that has no evidence and no victim. You're not building a case, you're building pressure. And judges hate pressure disguised as litigation. Even more damaging for Blake? Her own filings admit, indirectly, that she has no documents. No emails, no contracts, no funding trail, no group chat, no payments, no coordination logs, nothing linking any of these 107 defendants to each other. This wasn't an organized conspiracy. It was public reception. And the public reception was negative. Not manufactured. Not engineered. Organic. That's why her case is now hanging entirely on one pivot. If I can't prove the smear existed, I need to convince the court that the evidence of it was destroyed. which is why the signal issue is suddenly her entire legal strategy. She's effectively telling the judge, the reason I have no proof is because they deleted the proof. But here's the fatal flaw. You can't destroy what never existed. You can't sanction missing evidence when there was no legal obligation to preserve it at the time. And Judge Lyman already ruled on this. So why keep pushing it? Because if she loses the sanctions motion, she loses her entire narrative. No sanctions, just no deleted evidence. No deleted evidence, just no conspiracy, no conspiracy, no retaliation claim, just case collapses, and she knows it. That's why we suddenly see a PR push at the same time as the legal filings. Not to win in court, but to salvage public sympathy long enough to explain away losing in court. Because once summary judgment hits and discovery becomes public record, it won't be Blake who was smeared. It will be Blake who was exposed. PR experts say $30K a month isn't an outrageous fee on its own. Big studios pay far more during a crisis. But that's not the red flag. The problem is Jed Wallace couldn't keep his own story straight. In emails to Wayfarer, he bragged about having a team monitoring platforms, coordinating messaging, and manipulating SEO. But in sworn court statements, he suddenly claimed he had no team at all. So which version is true? Either he lied to the court about having no team, or he lied to Wayfarer about having one to justify his inflated invoices. Both options destroy credibility, and credibility is everything when you're accusing the other side of a conspiracy. And here's the bigger tell. If Blake was really under attack by a massive smear machine, where are the counter campaigns? Where's the rapid response PR? Where's the evidence of organized defense? Why was Jed laser focused on CTR manipulation and Google suppression instead of actual reputational defense? Because there was never a coordinated assault to defend against. The smear campaign wasn't real. It was a narrative used to justify Blake's retaliation. And once that justification fell apart, her legal machine shifted targets again, this time landing on someone who never wanted to be part of this scandal at all. Enter Isabella Ferrer, the actress who played young Lily Bloom. No PR agency. No bot network. No statements against Blake, just a cast member. Yet Wayfarer now says she is a critical eyewitness to what really happened behind the scenes, including conduct Blake does not want dissected under oath. There's just one problem for Blake's side. Isabella doesn't want to testify. Court filings show process servers went to multiple addresses: Brooklyn, Sag Harbor, no response. Her attorney won't accept service. She's basically disappeared from the case. And even more telling, she quietly scrubbed all photos of herself with Blake from Instagram. That kind of distancing is not accidental. That's self-protection. So why is Blake's legal team so desperate to drag her in? Because without witnesses, her entire story collapses. They need someone, anyone, to validate her claims. If Isabella speaks, she risks contradicting Blake. If she stays silent, Blake's side plans to spin it as evasion. It's a trap by design. And it mirrors the broader pattern. Small women-owned PR firms targeted creators, targeted journalists, targeted now, castmates targeted not to expose wrongdoing, to frighten potential critics into silence. But the irony? It's backfiring. Every subpoena creates another headline. Every person she tries to intimidate becomes another witness, not for her narrative, but against it. This is the Streisand effect playing out in real time. The more Blake tries to bury the story, the bigger and more visible it becomes. She didn't shut the narrative down, she supercharged it, and that's where everything finally flips. Because at this stage, people aren't even debating the original allegations anymore. They're questioning Blake's motives. If this were truly about safety or harassment or protecting women in the industry, she wouldn't be dragging people who barely had contact with her into court. She wouldn't be chasing actresses who have stayed silent. She wouldn't be subpoenaing creators with no platform or resources to fight back. This isn't justice. This is optics management. And it's backfiring badly. Public sentiment has gone from curiosity to skepticism to exhaustion, and now to open backlash. Even neutral observers and the people who originally said let's wait for the evidence are now asking the obvious. If Blake had proof, why hasn't she used it? Why are we watching procedural subpoenas instead of actual testimony? Why are more witnesses disappearing than coming forward? Because the deeper she pushes this, the more the illusion crumbles. The legal filings read less like a genuine harassment case and more like a PR containment strategy disguised as litigation. A strategy built to control the narrative, not defend the truth. And that's why Wayfarer's attorneys are quietly gaining ground. They've stopped fighting her on public commentary and are instead forcing her legal claims to stand on evidence, not theatrics, not Instagram statements, not fan sympathy. Blake wanted a public war. Wayfarer wants discovery. Those are two very different battlegrounds, and only one of them requires proof. And once the case shifts from headlines to hard evidence, the tone changes completely. Because in a courtroom, intention doesn't matter. Documentation does. Blake's filings rely heavily on implication and framing. Wayfarer's responses rely on receipts, emails, internal communications, production logs, third-party confirmations. Not speculation, verification. So when Blake argues there was a coordinated campaign to destroy her, the court isn't asking how she felt. They're asking who orchestrated it, when, and with which proof. And so far, none of those answers exist. Meanwhile, every time she widens the net, she triggers more discovery requests, which means more of her own texts, more internal exchanges, and more communications from her camp become fair game. That's the trap she set for herself. The more people she drags in, the wider the discovery door opens. The wider it opens, the deeper the court can dig. And the deeper they dig, the harder it becomes to maintain the narrative she started with. This is why PR experts are quietly calling this one of the most self-inflicted legal spirals Hollywood has seen in years. If her goal was to control perception, she chose the only battleground where spin doesn't matter. In court, you can't win with image management. You win with consistency. And lately, her story isn't consistent, it's reactive. Which is why people are starting to realize this isn't a harassment case gone wrong. It's a PR crisis masquerading as a legal one. And in that kind of war, the moment the truth stops being curated and starts being compelled, the mask slips. And here's the part Blake and Ryan Reynolds don't want anyone shining a light on. The backlash wasn't engineered in a basement somewhere. It was self-inflicted. There was no grand conspiracy. No military-grade network of paid bots. No shadowy smear factory. The wave of criticism came from real people reacting to her own behavior. The interviews, the red carpet comments, the public attitude that rubbed fans the wrong way. The It Ends With Us audience didn't band together because someone told them to. They reacted because they didn't like what they were watching unfold. Meanwhile, the person Blake keeps trying to implicate by proxy, Justin Baldoni, hasn't launched a PR war, hasn't dragged creators to court, hasn't planted stories, and hasn't weaponized the media. He stayed focused on the movie, kept his name out of the drama, and let the work speak for itself. That contrast is brutal. While Blake is trying to turn the justice system into a sledgehammer against critics, especially small female-led businesses, Justin hasn't touched a single legal threat. And that's why the public sentiment is slipping through her fingers. She isn't being smeared, she's being seen. Because this lawsuit hasn't just revealed one woman's thin-skinned PR crusade, it has exposed how easily Hollywood power players can hijack the courts to silence speech, intimidate dissent, and bury accountability under intimidation tactics. The truth is simple. Blake isn't losing because of TikTok. She's losing because every move she makes validates the criticism she claims is defamatory. And hovering in the background of all of this is a name she never addresses directly, but is impossible to ignore: Ryan Reynolds. He hasn't made a statement, but he doesn't have to. His influence shows up in the infrastructure around her. Ryan is tied to WME, a powerhouse agency infamous for hyper-aggressive PR playbooks, and to marketing firms that have documented histories of using bots, mass SEO manipulation, and engagement laundering to bury negative press. In entertainment, this isn't conspiracy. It's standard operating procedure. So when Blake suddenly started insisting she was the victim of a bot attack, you have to wonder, did that paranoia come from experience? If her own camp knows exactly how manufactured engagement works because they've used it, it becomes easy to believe everyone else must be doing the same thing. And Ryan doesn't need a microphone to be part of this fight. His silence functions as endorsement. His network gives her stamina. His money gives her reach. His brand gives her credibility. And by standing at her side without setting boundaries, he isn't just protecting her, he's legitimizing her scorched earth tactics. This is no longer just Blake's crusade. It's a joint operation being held up by influence, shielding itself with celebrity, and expecting the public to stay blind. But they're not blind anymore. This isn't America's sweetheart energy. This is raw Hollywood power protecting itself, and punishing anyone who dares to push back. And the deeper you go into this case, the more obvious the pattern becomes. Every time Blake tries to prove she's the victim, she accidentally highlights that she's the aggressor. Because if this entire backlash was truly the result of a coordinated smear campaign, then where is the proof? Where are the bot logs? Where are the IP trails? Where is the data analysis? Instead of evidence, she's delivering accusations. Instead of transparency, she's delivering intimidation. Instead of accountability, she's delivering court threats. And here's what her team did not expect. Dragging creators and PR professionals into legal war opened the door for discovery, meaning they can now request her communication records too. The subpoenas she is firing outward can legally boomerang right back. This is the exact moment where powerful Hollywood narratives usually collapse, not because someone defeats them, but because they overreach. Blake's entire argument hinges on a single premise. Everyone is attacking me because of a coordinated conspiracy. But the court filings, the ones she hoped would silence the backlash, are proving something very different. No evidence of PR sabotage, witnesses distancing themselves, cast members refusing service, claims built on implication, not documentation. Even worse, by invoking bots and covert reputation damage, her lawyers have unintentionally raised a dangerous question. If she believes the public reaction had to be manufactured, is that because she can't imagine ordinary people reacting negatively to her unless they were paid to? That's not victimhood, that's ego. And the more her team leans into that narrative, the more the public sees the entitlement underneath. The more she pushes the "I'm being hunted" storyline, the more she looks like the one doing the hunting. Meanwhile, Ryan stands there as the unspoken shield. No quotes, no press statements, just silent authorization. Because if he publicly distances himself, it signals weakness. If he stays by her side, it signals strategy. This is not just PR cleanup anymore. This is reputation warfare. But the irony is brutal. The people Blake believes are trying to destroy her image aren't doing nearly as much damage as she's doing to herself. She's not dealing with a smear campaign. She's dealing with recoil. A public that watched, listened, and decided they didn't like what they saw. And once a narrative stops being controlled and starts being observed, power stops working the way Hollywood is used to. This fight stopped being about criticism a long time ago. Now it's about control. And that's why this case is spiraling, not outward, but inward.